20 years of training, 20 years of broken bones and freezing mornings, and a father's approval always just out of reach. And then, on the single most important day of his life, the old turtle turns his back on him and points at a panda who fell out of the sky on a chair strapped to fireworks. That is Tai Lung's story. But what if Oogway had actually pointed that finger at the snow leopard, the one who bled for 20 years for that exact moment? What happens next? Who ends up leading the Furious Five? What happens when Lord Shen shows up with those cannons? Or when Kai claws his way back from the spirit realm? Or when the Chameleon starts stealing the moves of every master in China? Does Tai Lung stop all of them? Or does he become something worse than all of them put together? And the big one, the question that honestly kept me up more than it should have, what in the world happens to Po? Because once you pull that one thread, the entire franchise unravels and re-knits itself into something you have never seen. Villains who die in the movies get to live. Heroes who never existed suddenly run the whole valley. And a panda you thought you knew inside and out ends up living a completely different life. So stick with me, because by the end of this, I promise you're gonna look at that courtyard scene and feel something you did not expect. Real quick, if you're the kind of person who rewatches these movies as an adult and starts noticing how much darker they actually are, hit subscribe because that is the entire personality of this channel. And do me a favor, drop a comment right now and tell me, honestly, who's your favorite member of the Furious Five? I've got a strong opinion on that and I'll get to it. Alright, let's climb up to the Jade Palace. So picture that day, same courtyard, same crowd, same Shifu practically shaking with pride because everyone in the valley knows his son is about to be named Dragon Warrior. And I mean son. Shifu raised Tai Lung from a cub, poured everything into him. Tai Lung is kneeling on those stones, heart pounding, 20 years of 4 a.m. wake-ups in cold mountain air and broken bones behind him. And Oogway starts his slow walk over with that little staff, but this time he doesn't look up at the sky. He doesn't point at a rooftop where a chubby panda is bouncing off a tree. He kneels, right in front of Tai Lung. He lifts the leopard's chin with one ancient finger and says, "Your journey begins now." And for a split second you see something on Tai Lung's face we never got in the real movie. Not triumph, confusion. Like for the first time in his life, someone is looking at him as a whole person instead of a project. Shifu is crying, and somewhere across the valley a panda hits the wrong courtyard, dusts himself off and walks home, completely anonymous. Now, okay, I have to stop here because this is where I need to be honest about something that has bugged me since I was a kid. And look, I love Po. Let me say that clearly so nobody comes for me in the comments. I love the guy. But the whole idea at the center of the original movie, this random noodle guy who never trained a day in his life, who never sacrificed anything, who literally falls out of the sky by pure luck and gets handed the most sacred title in all of Kung Fu, that always felt kind of fake to me. Kind of hollow. Because where's the lesson in that? You never worked for it, you never bled for it, you never earned it, but you wanted it real bad, and the universe just gave it to you. Come on. The way I see it, the guy who showed up every single day for 2 decades deserved at least a real look before you hand it to a stranger. So this timeline fixes that. In this world, everyone earns what they get, including Po. Especially Po. But we'll get there. So Oogway makes the harder call. And here's the genius of it. He does not hand Tai Lung the dragon scroll right away. That's the whole key. In the movie, the scroll is treated like a graduation prize. But Oogway knows better. He uses it as a mirror. Every day for a year, he sits Tai Lung down in front of that thing and asks one question. Why did you make that move? To defeat the enemy? Or to make Shifu proud? First time, Tai Lung snaps. Second time, he gets defensive. Third time, he goes dead silent. By the 3rd month, his hands shake when he looks at it, because nobody had ever forced him to look at himself before. Everybody just told him he was special. Oogway is the first one to make him ask if he actually is. And I want to talk about what's really going on in Tai Lung's head here, because I think people breeze past it. There's this pattern you see in people who are genuinely gifted, actually talented, the real deal, and then they get a taste of success early, and their brain quietly wires itself to believe the success came entirely from their own greatness. So every win is proof they're a genius, and every failure is somebody else's fault. Bad timing. The universe cheating them. And here's the trap, and I'm not a psychologist, I'm just a guy who thinks about this stuff way too much. The dangerous part is that these people usually are that good, so nobody around them can push back. Nobody can tell them they're walking toward a cliff, because who are you to question the prodigy? That's Tai Lung, talented from birth, raised in front of a mirror of applause, told he was chosen before he could even walk. In the real timeline, Oogway let that rot for 20 years and then just turned his back. In this one, he catches it, one question at a time. 6 months in, Tai Lung is miserable, by the way. He hasn't done a single mission. He's just been forced to sit with himself, and let me tell you, that is harder than fighting any villain alive. And then Oogway sets up the moment that changes everything. He arranges for Shifu and Tai Lung to be alone under the peach tree. Just the two of them. And Shifu says the thing he never said in the actual film. I thought I loved you because I was proud of you, but I should have loved you simply because you were mine. And I'll be real with you, I get a little emotional every time I picture this. Because that's the apology Tai Lung never got. In the movie, Shifu admits he failed him, but he says it to Po, after Tai Lung is already gone. The leopard dies never hearing it. Here, he hears it, and he doesn't say anything back. He just stands up, this massive snow leopard, head bowed under the blossoms, and hugs his father. And that one hug rewrites the entire universe. Alright, but I know some of you are here for the kung fu, so let's talk about the fighting, because this is where I have a bone to pick with the original movie. Remember Tai Lung breaking out of Chorgom prison? Thousands of guards, Commander Vichir's whole fortress, crossbow bolts raining down, and he shreds through all of it like wet paper. That is the single most terrifying action sequence in the franchise. And then the final fight against Po? They straight up nerfed the man, cut his power in half so the panda could win. I'm sorry, but he couldn't show 1% of that prison performance against Po. He just ate hit after hit over and over in this cartoonish, drawn-out way that made no sense. That was the writers protecting their new hero, plain and simple. So in this timeline, we get the real Tai Lung, trained to his actual peak, mind finally quiet, and there is nothing on four legs that can touch him. And here's what happens when that power gets pointed the right way. His first big mission, a bandit gang is raiding villages on the western edge. Old Tai Lung would have flattened them in 30 seconds and strutted off feeling amazing. This Tai Lung walks straight past the camp into the village, sits with the elders, drinks their tea, asks what they actually need. Then he goes to the bandit leader. And yeah, they fight. And the fight is gorgeous. He moves like liquid lightning, every strike landing exactly where it needs to, every block calm. But at the end he pins the guy and leans in and says, "I know what it feels like to be the one nobody picked. Come back with me. I'll show you what comes next." And this hardened criminal just breaks down crying in the dirt. Because nobody had ever offered him anything but a fist. That becomes the pattern. Tai Lung doesn't just beat enemies, he turns them. And this is where the Furious Five stop being Po's family and become his. Especially Tigress. And okay, this is my answer to that comment question from earlier. Tigress is my favorite. Hands down. Most underrated character in the whole franchise, and it's not close. Think about her actual psychology. She grew up in Tai Lung's literal shadow. The kid at the orphanage nobody would adopt because she was too strong, too scary. Shifu took her in but never gave her real warmth, because his heart was still broken over the son he lost. So she trained herself into a weapon trying to earn love that never came. In this timeline when she meets Tai Lung as Dragon Warrior, there's tension. She basically inherited his abandoned dream. But he does the one thing nobody ever did for her. He sees her, and he makes her his second in command, not his subordinate, his partner. And for the first time in her life, Tigress isn't the runner-up. Monkey becomes his sharpest tactician, the guy who plans the missions. Mantis, the fastest, handles reconnaissance and, honestly, the comic relief. Viper becomes the heart of the group, the diplomat who talks villages down before a single punch is thrown. And Crane, quiet, steady Crane, becomes the one who trains the new recruits, and he brings in his old friend Mei Ling to help. This isn't a team anymore, it's a family that actually works. Now before we get to the big villains, let me hit you with the moment that made me want to make this whole video. So if you're still here, smash that like button because here's where the timeline really starts to bend. Lord Shen, the peacock. In the movies, Shen's whole tragedy starts with a massacre. He marches on a hidden panda village to try and erase a prophecy, and that act is the original sin that curses him. But in this world, Tai Lung has been doing his diplomatic work for years, and word travels. So when Shen's wolves start moving north toward the mountains, Tai Lung hears about it before Shen ever reaches the village. And picture this. Shen is leading his army up a narrow forest path at dusk, absolutely certain, drunk on that prophecy, and he stops cold. Because deep in the trees, in the dark between two pines, there are two glowing orange eyes staring back at him, just watching, silent. And Tai Lung steps out of the shadows before a single arrow is loosed, before a single home burns. The massacre never happens. It just doesn't. And their confrontation isn't really a fight, it's a recognition. Two damaged sons, both rejected by their fathers, standing across from each other. Tai Lung looks at Shen and sees exactly who he almost became. There is a fight, because Shen never goes down easy. Those blades, that cannon. But Tai Lung disarms him, destroys the weapon, and offers him the same second chance Oogway once offered him. Shen refuses, because his pride ran too deep. But he doesn't die. He's exiled to a monastery in the far north, where the soothsayer, that wise old goat who always saw the good in him, goes with him. And Shen spends his last years painting. His wolf boss falls with the old regime. And here's the part that quietly wrecks me. Because Shen never reaches that village, a certain panda cub grows up with both his parents alive. Hold that thought, because it's the whole ending. Now let me do something, because I know you're wondering what happened to everybody else in this universe. And there's a lot of everybody. So let me sweep through it, because half the fun of an alternate timeline is seeing where all the pieces land. The Masters of Gongmin City. Thundering Rhino, who dies in the actual movie fighting Shen. He lives. Because Shen got stopped early, Rhino never falls, and he becomes one of Tai Lung's greatest mentors, alongside Storming Ox and Master Croc. Though in this quieter, safer China, Croc actually hangs up the fighting and opens a little school downriver. And honestly, seeing a legendary warrior happy teaching kids instead of cracking skulls is its own kind of beautiful. The regional masters, Yao, Shengqi, Chao, Yijiro over in the eastern provinces, they all fold into Tai Lung's growing network of teachers. Master Ding, who was always a bit of a fraud trading on a title he didn't earn, gets quietly exposed and sent packing, because this is a world that finally cares who actually did the work. And the villains, right? Because there are a ton of them scattered across China. Here's the thing, Most of them either get reformed or they just fade, because a stable valley is a terrible place to be a bad guy. Feng, the crocodile bandit, and his good-hearted cousin Gary actually go straight, mostly because Gary was never really cut out for crime anyway, and Feng follows him. Temutai, the warrior king, gets humbled in single combat and pledges his strength to the valley instead. Taoti, the bitter inventor, and his son Bian Zhao get redirected. Tai Lung puts that genius to work building bridges and water wheels instead of war machines. And the rest of them, Hundun, Tong Fo, the Wu sisters Su, Wing, and Wan, Jing Mei, the whole rogues gallery, they scatter, because there's no chaos left for them to feed on. Even Feng Huang, that owl, one of Oogway's original students who turned dark and got sealed away long ago, Tai Lung visits her in her mountain prison, because he of all people understands what it's like to be the student who almost fell. He can't free her. But he's the first one who ever tries to understand her. Some of them, though, are bigger than a stable valley can hold. Kepa, the demon lord who can take the form of a dragon. Jin Diao, the eagle spirit who feeds on qi. The great white macaque up in the frozen north. Those aren't reform cases. Those are threats. And in this timeline, Tai Lung and the Five spend years sealing them away one by one, building a China strong enough that when the old evils wake up, there's a wall of masters ready. And far to the west, that whole web of the Dragon Knights, the Wandering Blade Luthera, Rukmini, Colin, Alphonse, they hear rumors of a snow leopard in the east who turns enemies into allies, and they send word, and alliances form across oceans. Even the villains out there, the Dumont Weasels Klaus and Veruca, Sir Drake, the Lin Kuei assassins and their leader Kira Zikang, they find a world that's a lot harder to exploit, because the story got out that redemption is on the table, and that is genuinely bad for the villain business. And the next generation grows up in the light instead of the dark. Peng, Tai Lung's own nephew, a young snow leopard who in the original series has to live under the shame of his uncle's name. In this world he grows up proud, because his uncle is the greatest hero in China, and he becomes one of Tai Lung's finest students. Zhen, the clever little fox who runs with bad company, gets pulled out of it by Tai Lung instead of falling deeper. Han, Nuhai, Jing, Fantong, a whole generation of kids who get teachers patient enough to actually reach them. Zheng the messenger goose finally gets to deliver good news for once. Commander Vachir, who in the movies gets humiliated by a prison break that never happens here, keeps his honor and trains the palace guard. This is what one different choice does. It doesn't just save Tai Lung, it saves everyone downstream of him. Okay, we're past the halfway point now, and this is where the two threats hit that actually test everything Tai Lung built, so let's go. First, Kai, the bull who steals the chi of every master he defeats. In the movie, Po only barely beats him by mastering chi at the last possible second, learning it on the fly. But Tai Lung? By the time Kai crosses over from the spirit realm, Tai Lung has been studying chi for 15 years. He's not scrambling, he's a master of it. And here's the thing, he doesn't face Kai alone, and that matters, because the old Tai Lung would have. His whole disease was that he thought he had to be the only one, the special one, the solo legend. This Tai Lung has a family now, so when Kai comes, they come together. Picture it, green mist rolling across the mountaintops, jade soldiers crashing down like an avalanche of stone, and the Five moving through them in perfect formation. Tigress shattering jade with those iron paws. Crane pulling masters out of harm's way from above. Monkey and mantis flanking. Viper wrapping and disarming. And Tai Lung at the center, calm as still water, reading Kai's hunger like a book he's already finished. He and the Five drive Kai back not with one hero's sacrifice, but with a family's precision. And at the end, Tai Lung doesn't destroy him, he lets Kai see for 1 second what that endless hunger for power actually does to a person. Because Tai Lung lived it. And in that one flicker of hesitation, the Five close the circle, and it's done. Clean. Together. No sacrifice, no dying hero, just a family that refused to let one of their own face the dark alone. And after Kai, this is my favorite thing Tai Lung does in the entire timeline. He retires. At the peak. And when he does it, he stands in that courtyard in front of everyone and says the Dragon Warrior title was never real. It was a story. A perception. He tells them the truth Oogway took 20 years to figure out. That every single one of the Five is already as good as any Dragon Warrior ever was. And then, and I love this, he takes a little shot at Oogway, gently. He says something like, the old turtle spent his whole life looking for one chosen one. He should have looked at the room, it was full of them. And Shifu laughs. Because he agrees. And Tai Lung gives the Dragon Warrior title to all 5 of them at once, and then he walks away from it, into a quiet life. And here's the detail that gets me. In this universe, we see Shifu happy, genuinely happy, sitting under the peach tree sharing tea with the son he almost lost, year after year. In the real movies, Shifu finds a kind of peace with Po, sure, but it's the peace of a man making the best of a second chance. This is different. This is the first choice working out. This is the wound never happening in the first place. And watching those two just drink tea and argue about nothing under the falling blossoms, man, that's the whole reason I love this version. But every piece ends. And this one ends with the Chameleon. Now if you've seen the 4th movie, you know her. This shape-shifting sorceress who can take the exact form and skill of any master she's ever seen. And here's the terrifying part, and this is why even a master like Tai Lung is in real trouble. He's old now, gray in his fur, slower than he was. And she doesn't just fight him, she copies him. Every strike he throws, she throws back. Every counter he knows, she already knows, because she's wearing his own technique like a stolen coat. Imagine fighting a mirror that hits as hard as you used to. He lands a spinning strike, she flows under it and returns it faster. He goes for the nerve strike that beat Kai, and she catches his wrist because she is him. And for the first time since that courtyard, decades ago, Tai Lung is losing, really losing. Down on one knee in the rain, chest heaving, watching his own reflection raise his own move to finish him. And this is the moment the whole timeline has been quietly building to. Because someone catches her strike an inch from Tai Lung's throat, a panda. And not a lucky one, not a chosen one, a warrior. Because remember that cub whose parents lived, whose village Tai Lung saved in the forest all those years ago? That's Po. And Po didn't fall out of any sky in this world. He grew up in that panda village with his real mother and his father Lord Shen, surrounded by his grandfather and Mei Mei and the little ones, Lele, Dim, Sum, Bao, a whole community that survived because a snow leopard stood in a forest and said no. And Po grew up hearing one name over and over, the way kids grow up on legends. Tai Lung, the hero who saved his people before he was even born. Po trained his entire life. He earned every ounce of skill in his body, the hard way, with sweat and failure and years, not with a firework and a wish. And now the childhood hero he's worshipped his whole life is on his knees, and Po steps in front of him and takes the fight. And the two of them fight back to back. The old master and the warrior he saved without ever knowing it. And it is glorious. The chameleon can copy one of them, but she can't copy the bond. She can't predict the way Po covers Tai Lung's slower side, the way Tai Lung reads her a half second before she shifts, and calls it out so Po can land the blow. She wears Tai Lung's form so Po fights his own hero's mirror while the real one guards his back. She becomes Tigress, becomes Kai, becomes a dozen masters in a dozen seconds, and they weather all of it, spine to spine, because the one thing she has never been able to steal is what it feels like to fight for someone you love. Po finally pins her, and Tai Lung, kneeling beside him, breathing hard, does the only thing he's ever known how to do. He offers her a way out, and whether she takes it or not, the important thing already happened. The hero got to be saved by the life he saved. And that, right there, is the whole point of this universe. Because in the real movies, Po earns his place, eventually, through effort, and I respect that arc. But this timeline asks a better question. What if the lucky panda was never lucky at all? What if he was raised right, loved right, trained right, by parents who lived because a broken villain got a second chance? Then the panda isn't a fluke. He's a promise kept. He's proof that the good Tai Lung did came all the way back around to save his own life. And honestly, I have thought about this way too much, but I think that's a more beautiful story than a chair full of fireworks. So let me leave you with where everyone lands. Tai Lung lives to be very old, and in his final years he sits under the peach tree the exact way Oogway used to, petals falling on gray fur, students gathered at sunset asking questions he answers slowly, without certainty, with stories. Tigress runs the palace now, the leader she was always meant to be. Po becomes the greatest warrior of his generation, the earned way. Shifu goes peacefully, under that tree, with his son holding his hand, and one spring afternoon, surrounded by the enormous family he built out of bandits and exiles and lost kids and one panda who wouldn't let him fall, Tai Lung closes his eyes for the last time, and his final words aren't to anyone in particular. I was never the dragon. The dragon was in every one of you. I just lived long enough to help you see it. So that's the timeline. That's what happens when a teacher actually teaches, when a father says the right words in time, when the one nobody picked gets picked, and spends the rest of his life making sure nobody ever feels the way he felt on those courtyard steps again. I'd genuinely love to know where you land on this one, and I mean that. I wish we could just sit down over a cup of tea and argue about it for an hour. Would Tai Lung have actually stayed good? Was Po better as an earned warrior or as the lucky underdog? And be honest, did you also always love the Furious Five more than the main story? Because I always have, and I can't be the only one. Drop it all in the comments. I read every single one. If you made it all the way here, you're exactly my kind of person. Hit subscribe if you're new, share this with the friend who still yells, "There is no charge for awesomeness," and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember, the dragon was never one of us. It was always in every single one of us. We just had to find a teacher patient enough and kind enough to show us.